The polls that came out last night were triple take territory. I don't know at what point you saw them. I was about to do a sort of a corporate event, and the Twitter, I just check Twitter before I go on stage just to see if there's anything I can reveal. It's always nice that, because the audience might not have checked it. They're too busy chatting, and you're backstage waiting to go. On the front, you think, I wonder that. And I saw these polls, the YouGov one in particular, and I thought it was a joke. I thought someone had put together a fake account, and then I saw who'd retweeted it or where it had come from, and I thought, well, that's a little bit odd. I mean, that looks real. And then I actually went to YouGov's site and scrolled down a bit, and there, lo and behold, there it was. 33-point lead for Labour with YouGov, a 21-point lead with Survation, a 19-point lead with Delta Poll, and a 17-point lead with Redfield and Wilton. The last one interesting because that's the biggest lead Redfield and Wilton have ever seen as well. So even though it's the lowest of the four, it's the biggest they have ever seen. And then this morning, another one came in bang on the 20. So your first thought is, good Lord, those poor saps who've spent the last 2 or 3 years thinking that anyone who said that any other leader would have been 20 points ahead of Theresa May back in 2018. They've spent 4 years now pretending that meant we also believed that any other leader would be 20 points ahead of Boris Johnson in 2021. They're now crucified by their own idiocy, their own stupidity, by pretending that they believed that when nobody genuinely did. They now have to sort of get hoisted by their own absurdity. That was the first thought. The second thought, of course, was flipping heck. I mean, that these are not normal numbers. This is a lead the like of which the Labour Party has never seen before. And it's sort of come from nowhere in terms of the numbers, in terms of what the graph has done, the gradient, what it's done. Imagine the opposite of what the pound did after Kwasi Kwarteng announced his new economic policy. That's what Labour's polling numbers have done. Not quite over the same period. So, you've all seen the graph of the pound tootling along. It's gone down to... Whoa, boy, la. It's gone down... I nearly said something a little bit music hall and rude there, but I'm very glad I didn't. It's gone down faster than butcher's elbow. The opinion polling numbers of the Labour Party have done the exact opposite. They've sort of been tootling along. Everybody expects, traditionally, a honeymoon period. So the relief of getting rid of Boris Johnson, which is fairly widespread, except in the hardcore membership of the Conservative Party. A little bit of relief at getting rid of Boris Johnson. Liz Truss winning, winners usually get a little bit of a boost. The winners, the victors boost, if you like, the victors Viagra. And, of course, the idea that she'd made bold and sweeping statements very early in her tenure, you could realistically have expected what they call a honeymoon period. So you'd see a slight improvement in the polls for the Conservative Party because they'd got a new leader. They'd had a bit of a clear out. Holy McMoly. What is the opposite of a honeymoon? I guess it's being jilted at the altar, isn't it? And Liz Truss is looking pretty close to having been jilted at the altar by the electorate, albeit that she did just get a ring on her finger. That's one of the most torturous and poor analogies I think I've ever employed on the programme, and goodness knows it's a crowded field. So here we are at 30 minutes after 10, looking at absolutely astonishing poll numbers and wondering two things. The first thing we're wondering is, do we ever really have interesting conversations about opinion polls? What goes up must go down? In this case, I think, yes, necessarily. With the 33 lead, I can't see that translating into an election result. If it did, there'd be about 60 Tories. I'll say that again, 60 Tories in the House of Commons if that YouGov poll was translated into an election result. Isn't that incredible? There'd be golf clubs up and down the land advertising for a new manager, and they'd be getting applications from 200 recently unemployed Tory MPs who aren't fit for much else. Actually, that's not fair on golf club managers. I apologise. That's quite a complicated job, I imagine. You've got to keep people sweet. You've got to have some people skills. So, question number one, can we have an interesting conversation about opinion polls? Well, to which the answer is, well, that's up to you, James. You've got to ask us the right question. Question number two, then, is this the right question? This is the one that most interests me. Because you look at this number, and let's focus on the 33, because that's fun, right? And it is just epic. It's huge. It's unbelievable. Possibly literally unbelievable. But let's not complicate things. 33-point lead for the Labour Party that has come more or less out of nowhere. So and this will only just include Labour conference, right? What do you think the single biggest reason is for the explosion in support for Keir Starmer's Labour Party this week, right? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. And I'll take whatever you've got. I mean, ideally, your personal position. The reason why I am part of the explosion in support for Keir Starmer's Labour Party is James ... It could be, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I am enduringly fascinated by how much of it is disillusion with the other lot, how much of it is Labour actually winning your admiration as opposed to the Conservatives losing it. It's not as simple as that, is it? Because just because you've fallen out with love with the Tory party doesn't mean you're going to start voting for the Labour Party. Quite the opposite in recent years, but Keir Starmer has clearly turned around that particular oil tanker, that toxicity of the brand that people on the doorstep were being told about. All the time during the 2019 election, everybody reporting back to me that the doorsteps were just giving so much negative opinion on the last leader of the Labour Party. He's turned that around. But why such a huge explosion? Unprecedented. And indeed close to unbelievable, almost certainly unsustainable, but who knows? Who knows? We talked about the light at the end of the tunnel for the population in general, for the country at large, just 10 minutes ago. For Liz Truss, what does the light at the end of the tunnel look like for Liz Truss? I honestly couldn't tell you, and I do this for a living. I tell you that if I had come up with a policy that had caused the pound to tank and compelled the Bank of England to intervene to undo some of the damage being done to the country by the policy I introduced on Friday, I wouldn't be deriving an enormous amount of confidence from the fact that the Daily Mail is still giving Daniel Hannan a full page to explain why he understands everything better than Mark Carney, the Bank of England, the IMF, the Economist, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, the Office of Budgetary Responsibility, your mum's best friend and your window cleaner's cat. Whatever anybody else thinks, Daniel Hannan knows best, and that's over 6 years since the Brexit vote.